In case where an object is identified as an incomplete by sensation, our perceptual process gives it a complete picture. We have often seen when there is something incomplete, our mind helps you to complete it. So closure is said to occur when a human mind perceives it as a complete whole, although the object is incomplete and some elements are missing. Now, what is the utility of this to the marketeers? Though it is not mentioned out here, you see that marketeers have a challenge in the advertising and communication, that they have to first reach many people, and then they have to constantly come before the target customer so that they first notice them. Then the need trigger happens, then he's pursued for the call to action, and then you compel him for the call to action. Now as a result, advertiser has to come again and again repeatedly. Now that's where you see that this principle is of utility. First the 30-second ad will come, or first full page ad comes, and from that full page ad, then the quarter page ad starts coming in more frequently. Everything that is discussed in the full page is not discussed in the quarter. Everything that is in the 30-second ad is not in the 10-second ad. So after the initial days or 2 or 3 30-second ads runs, you see a full ad. Then the small clipping comes, which is 10-second. It's a different partial story, but our mind constructed as a full story because we have earlier seen a full story. So mind has now constructed a full story every time when the 10-second ad comes in. That's where the closure principle is of importance. Significance, simplification. When people are exposed to too much of a stimuli, too many stimuli, too much of a stimuli coming to the consumers at a repeated interval, etc., consumers do not bother to get into grouping extensively. They get into simplification. So that simplification leads him to simplify his understanding. A person who wants to buy a laptop and browses through the brochures of a different companies, and their configuration looks for the keywords rather than reading the whole thing. So he will look for hard disk, he will look for RAM, he will look for those kind of things, because in his mind he has simplified that computers can be classified good if there is a good hard disk space, there is a good RAM, there is a good type of a chip that is i3 and above or i5 and above. So he looks into your brochure or e-brochure for those information. You might have fed in so many things, but his eyes or his mind tries to look at those stimuli, which is his act of simplification. Okay, in past he has received so much of information. Now his mind has simplified it for him, that when you are buying a laptop, look for hard disk capacity, look for RAM, look for which chipset is there. Okay, so that's how his mind is simplified. He gets into simplification. So there's a third process, in perceptual interpretation. Interpretation, as the word says, you try and make a meaning out of it. After the input has been given, and then it is received by the stimuli is received by the organs, or stimuli is received by the mind gets into organization. We have seen that organization part earlier, and then comes the subject matter of giving it a coherent form, which is an interpretation. This is referred as a perceptual interpretation. You make a picture out of it. So when I study the RAM, hard disk, Intel i3, i5, etc., of HP, of Dell, of Lenovo, etc., one picture will come. Okay, this brand is the best, kind of, or this brand configurations are always aligned with the time or a need of an hour, etc. So that's how my perceptual interpretation has happened towards a particular brand. It's purely a cognitive process. In my mind, I have information, I analyze, my mind analyzes the information, organizes it, principle of Gestalt and the simplification comes into picture. That enables me to construct one whole picture about your brand. That's where this perceptual mechanism that we are trying to understand, in that the perceptual interpretation, which is a third process state, comes and play the role. So perceptual mapping, overall we were studying this perceptual mapping, under which the perceptual mechanism related things we understood. Preference of space resides in the consumer's perceptual space, and so now we come to how do you form that perception. So there is a space in the mind of the consumers which accepts what stimuli you gave, what I have interpreted, simplified, and created the whole picture about you. So perceptual space is a collective collage of a perception. What comes to your mind when you hear a word razor, if I had to ask you, or a trimmer? I'm sure when I told you razor, it must be Gillette, but when I told you trimmer, it must be Philip. So both are into a different, domain or this thing, but serving the same purpose. Now the trimmer has gradually taking over the role of a razor also. So that's where the perceptual mechanism and mapping plays a role. So why the name Gillette came when the razor was talked about, and the Philip came when the trimmer was talked about. So that's what is a science of a perceptual mapping. In our mind, these maps are formed. So for the map to form, there has to be two axes. So that's why this particular point, always you compare a brand or a communication received from the brand on a two tangent, whether consciously or subconsciously is maybe. So when I talk to you about my speed of delivery, you will immediately relate it with the cost. So DHL, when talks about express delivery, you may ask a second question in your mind, they must be costly, vis-a-vis Turakya courier or any other courier. So why? Because mind is tuned, because mind has to now form a place in itself, and that's where this two factor determination comes into picture. Low price, high price. So it's a feature rich, product. So then next question you ask, is it costly then? So that's how, because your mind is accustomed to making a 2-point comparison. So that's what is a 2-point comparison enables the formation of the perceptual map. This is a map in front of you for the Cadbury. So various Cadbury brands are put in here. So first is the price and the quality. High price, high quality, low quality. Now, this is based on the question that has been asked to the consumers where they put various brands. So Lindt is the world's best recognized chocolate, and it comes out here. So they are regarded as a high price, moderately high price, and good in quality. Likewise, Cadbury, moderately priced and moderate on quality. Kit Kat, etc. So you see, this is what is a perceptual map. This is a map in the mind of the consumer, how they look at each brand. So when you ask them about Lindt, when you ask them about Green and Blacks, etc., or a Cadbury, what is it that two-factor compares in their mind? Now, these two factors are not necessarily has to be rigid. Okay, you can compare it with the taste also. You can compare it with the packaging also. So that kind of this thing, the map frames on various two-way factor combination, and then one final perception emerges. But essentially, the most driven factors forms a stronger map. So always there is a quality so related to price, features so related to price. So that's how we will question. So I was just trying to show you the pictorial representation of perceptual mapping. So perceptual maps helps you to know where you stand today, whether you are close to what you expected your brand position to be, whether you are close to what customer expect your brand position to be. So you come to know the correction where you are supposed to have. So if your Cadbury feels that they are supposed to be recognized for the quality, then here is this thing for them, that people are not really recognizing them as a high in quality. So now Cadbury will have to work to see that this goes up. So that's a correction that Cadbury will have to work for. So that's how the perceptual mechanism helps you. So what is your self-impression? What is your impression in the mind of the consumer? Is it matching? If it is not, some correction is required. For such correction, and those were perceptual mechanism helps. So perceptual map formation is a tool or a framework in that.